welding process. Alright, so now we're going to do the combination of art and science. Welders have, off PowerPoint here, welders have almost complete control of the process. Welding is very much an artistic skill. However, it also has a tremendous amount of science, chemistry, electrical theory, metallurgy. There's so much that goes into welding, machining, so forth, that as we dig deeper and deeper underneath the surface, it gets really fascinating for most people to be able to start thinking about how we weld and join materials together. Alright, so now we're back to the book. Chapter 1, page 8, left-hand column, 2/3 of the way down. It said gas welders may specialize in oxyacetylene. Back up here. Show you a couple ones. Let's just look at some different examples. You can see vertical weld this gentleman is doing. This is kind of a 6G position, so it's kind of at a 45. However, vertical weld is where the progression of the weld is going uphill. Now you can have a vertical weld with an uphill progression, or you can have a vertical weld with a downhill progression. That's what we call an essential variable. Certain welding rods are designed, so for example 7018 is designed to only weld uphill. Okay, 6010, which we'll also be using as well, 5P especially, is designed to weld uphill or downhill, either or. Okay? Part of that has to do with the flux capacity and so forth. In this picture here, the overhead weld, as you can see, he's welding literally overhead. Now, let's be very careful. Overhead welding means that that weld is in that position. Does it have to be above your head? Not necessarily. If that weld is 2 inches off the ground or 2 miles in the air, it's still an overhead weld. The only thing it has to do is be in the same position that's classified an overhead weld. Okay? Same thing with flat. If a flat weld is 2 inches off the ground or 2 miles in the air, it's still a flat weld. It's a welding position. It doesn't have any correlation to where it is in comparison to your body. Okay? We talked about certification, so forth. Let's get into gas welding, okay? Gas welders, so we're back to the book, page 8, left-hand column, halfway down. Gas welders may specialize in oxyacetylene or gas tungsten arc welding processes. Some welders are skilled in all the processes. You should acquire competence in shielded, metal, arc, SMAW, GTAW, and GMAW processes for both plate and pipe. Okay, real quick, go to the bottom of that page, left-hand column, qualifications of personnel. Read through that paragraph and then the paragraph to the right as well. They will talk a little bit more about what I was explaining with qualification versus certification and so forth. Okay. Page 9. Left-hand column, bottom paragraph. Welders must also be able to cut metals with the oxyacetylene cutting torch and with the various cutting let me find this real quick. No. Okay, it's not in here, so back to the book. Welders must be able to cut metals with the oxyacetylene cutting torch and with the various cutting procedures involving the plasma arc cutting machine. Flame cutting is often the only practical method for cutting parts or repairing steel plate and pipe. Plasma arc cutting is used to cut all types of metals. Proper use of an electric or pneumatic grinder will save many hours in the welding processes. So, talk about this here in a minute. A lot of times folks will come into our shop and they only want to use the plasma arc cutting because it is faster, it's cleaner, it's not as hot. You can turn it on and cut something real quick. That's not what we're here for. We're here to get experience in both. Majority of the time, I want you, if it's steel, you're going to cut it with the oxyacetylene cutting practice. An oxyacetylene cutting torch is in almost every shop across the country and across the world. It's the most inexpensive and easiest cutting method out there. The tips last years. They're inexpensive. So example, a cutting tip might be $15 for an oxyacetylene torch. There's cleaning tips you can use to keep it clean, well maintained, so forth. You might get 3 or 4 years out of that cutting tip. A plasma arc one, the electrode itself is like $25. By the time you add the consumables up into it, you're $60, $70 into just the consumables, let alone you also need an air compressor or another fuel or another gas. You can use other gases, helium and argon and so forth. But you also need a high electric charge or a plasma to be able to, or an electrical outlet to be able to run the plasma machine, okay? If you're out in the middle of nowhere, you don't have an air compressor and you don't have the electric, so you don't have 220 volts and you don't have a small machine to be able to run the 115 volts, just a whole lot of variables there you may not be able to use. However, if you've got an oxyacetylene torch, you can cut almost anything. Steel, I'll explain to you later during the oxyacetylene class how you can actually cut stainless steel by oxy fuel as well, using a waster plate and using the carbon to help accelerate the program. Topic for another day. So you're going to be using the oxyacetylene welding cutting torch a lot, along with the plasma arc torch as well. Okay. So let's just hit the PowerPoint here. I don't see it coming out of the book really. There are some other parts of this chapter that are very important. I don't have anything in my book highlighted, but let's talk a few things about this, the rest of these slides, okay? Welding occupations requiring a high school education? For the most part, yes, nowadays they do. However, it doesn't necessarily mean that's the only way you're going to get a job as well, okay? Again, it goes back to the certified welder. Are you going to get a job only if you're a certified welder? Absolutely not, okay? Some companies do not require you to be a certified welder, okay? Some of them may. Usually, if you are a certified welder, it usually produces higher paying jobs, but it also puts some more pressure on you as well. Because if you get 3 rejectable welds within a 6-month period, you might be fired, okay? So, anytime you get more wages, or higher wages I should say, comes higher responsibility and a higher skill set as well. Safety and working conditions. By this point, we've been through MATC and the base welding safety class within the manufacturing program. However, safety doesn't stop there. Safety's every day, every day. Always be thinking. And here's a good example, this picture here. You know, these folks are up here on this beam hanging off there, tied off. Things have changed a lot because looks like they're only wearing waist belts. Now it would be a full body harness, so forth. But possibility of falling, you're outside, it's either hot or it's cold. One of the two usually. You're in the sun exposure all day, you're wearing heavy clothing, even when it's warm out, just to keep from getting burnt. Awkward positions, so forth. We've talked quite a bit about it. Please remember to just keep all these topics in mind as you're going through. Okay, so at this point I would do the Chapter 1 review out of the back of your book. Some of the questions out of your chapter review may be on the test, some of them may not. Okay? Condense your notes. Try to take very good notes about bolded items that we talked about, anything I may have mentioned, so forth. Thank you for being a part of this lecture. Have a good day.